Today's video is brought to you by my second channel, X2, and I know some of you guys are probably a little bit tired of me promoting the second channel, but I've only got a few months until my second baby comes, so I want to get everything perfectly up and running before I've got to take some time off. If you want more Star Wars content, I actually covered the lore of the cancelled Darth Maul video game in today's video over on X2, which I'll link, and it covers a lot of interesting topics, including how Darth Maul would have actually interacted with Darth Krayt and the One Sith, who were like the next major Sith Lords after Palpatine. I also talk about how it all could have tied in perhaps with George Lucas's vision for Star Wars Episode 7. So if you're interested, I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner, as I said, and also down in the description. Darth Bane was one of the most influential Sith in Star Wars history. He changed the entire dynamic of how the Sith operated in the galaxy, and through the rule of two, an invention of his own, he paved the way for the Sith to work from the shadows and gain power, culminating in the rise of Emperor Palpatine and the destruction of the Jedi Order. Prior to Darth Bane, the Sith had abandoned their infighting and continual jousting for power in favor of the Sith Brotherhood, where many Sith came together to work towards a common goal. However, Darth Bane felt that without the competition and destruction of the weakest, that the Sith would be held down. So he created the rule of two, where there would be two Sith, one possessing power and the other coveting it, as a way to keep the Sith lineage strong. Bane's rejection of the Sith Brotherhood and his creation of the rule of two can be tied to his experience growing up on the planet Apatros, a desolate rock ball in the Outer Rim, where power and survivability were the only things that mattered. On Apatros, nobody else looked out for you. You had to take care of yourself. So today, to help understand Darth Bane, we will look at his childhood and the first 2.5 decades of Darth Bane's life. Darth Bane was born as Dessel, and his Sith name actually came from his father, who saw Dessel as the bane of his existence. Darth Bane's mother died during childbirth, so Bane was left alone with his father, a single parent who obviously didn't care about him very much. At some point, the two moved to the planet Apatros, or Bane may have been born there, it's not exactly clear to me, where his father Hurst began mining cortosis. The cortosis mines of Apatros are just absolutely awful. They're essentially slavery. How it works is that the mines, which were run by the Outer Rim Ore Works Company, preyed on people who were desperate, who had no money, or who were born into servitude. Everything on Apatros was exorbitantly expensive, from housing to transport to supplies. The corporation essentially kept its workers by forcing them to pay off a massive, essentially unpayable debt. When you worked in the mines, you would earn income to go against your debt. However, it's not like you were getting paid a salary or a wage. Instead, you were being paid per the cortosis brought back to camp. Of course, this made life in the mines extremely challenging because miners were not only fighting against the harsh conditions, which we'll come back to in a second, but also against each other. It seems clear to me that almost nobody can escape the Apatros mining slavery scheme that was going on here in the Outer Rim, not only because you were relying on Outer Rim Ore Works, or ORO, for basically all of your needs, but also because they charged what would be in the core illegally high interest rates. So when it came to Bane, because his father was an alcoholic and missed a lot of time off work, not only did he not pay back his debt, but because of the interest, it ballooned to an unmanageable size. Bane's father was not only an alcoholic, but abusive, and along with the other miners on Apatros, essentially tortured his son. And the only thing that saved Darth Bane from harassment throughout his entire life was the fact that he became extremely large as he grew older. By the beginning of the Darth Bane trilogy, when he's in his 20s, Bane is 6'7" or 6'8" and incredibly muscular due to a decade of hard labor. So Bane was able to defend himself. However, he did spend much of his childhood being beat up by his father and his father's friends. Bane unwittingly caused his father's death as a teenager through the Force, and while that did free him of his abuser, that meant that all of his father's debt went to Bane himself. The boy had already been working in the mines since the age of 16, but now the entire responsibility of paying off the debt and trying to get off Apatros was put onto his shoulders, and most people just didn't leave the planet. They died usually pretty young, whether in cave-ins or fights or whatever else, and even those who did survive were essentially physically destroyed by the work. What was that work like? Well, it was awful. Pretty much the most brutal existence that you can imagine. First of all, there's nothing on Apatros. It is simply a mine and a small settlement. The surface is caked with dust, there are very few amenities on Apatros, and as I mentioned, everything is extremely expensive and tied into your bill as a laborer for Oro. Apatros has 20-hour days, and mining was split up into two 10-hour shifts, with a day shift and a night shift. Essentially, on Apatros, you would work your 10 hours, then you would take 10 hours off, and you'd be right back to work. And this work was absolutely terrible. Cortosis is known for its lightsaber resistance properties, but it's not only used in armor. It's also in things like spaceship hulls, and even some weapons. However, it's almost impossible to actually mine because of its hardness and its resistance to energy, so you can't simply cut it out of the wall. Rather, you have to use large hammering drills. So just imagine this, you've got 10 hours of your day holding up a 60 or 70 pound drill onto the wall in front of you as it's pounding away and chipping at this rock wall. Most of us couldn't do that for 5 minutes, let alone for 10 hours. Let alone for 10 hours every single day for your entire life. But the pain isn't the only thing. The mines are actually incredibly deadly as well. We talked about cave-ins earlier, which were fairly common, and even unfriendly miners, but there were also really serious issues with dust and debris and materials in the air. Now, this manifested in several ways. On one hand, all of the machinery would eventually break down, especially because Oro always bought cheap stuff, but the miners themselves were also slowly being poisoned, which is why Darth Bane and the other miners on Apatros all went bald, and there were surely a lot of other serious health issues under the surface. I mean, if you're going bald and losing hair, there's definitely a lot going on that you can't see as well. It wasn't just adult men and women who chose to go into the mines, as we mentioned. There were also children forced into slavery, essentially, because of the debts of their parents. Bane had been working in the mines since he was 16 at least, and escape is impossible because the Republic, for all the good they claimed to do, thought that this was a totally legal practice. You could join the Republic Navy, and instead of saving you from this slavery, they would dock your pay and send a portion, or perhaps the whole thing, off to the corporation. This is one of the many reasons why there wasn't a lot of love for the Republic in the Outer Rim, and Darth Bane says this is why the Sith are having no trouble finding new members. The Republic would never really get their act together when it came to slavery, and part of this was because indentured servitude or outright slavery made up a lot of the industry and commerce in the Outer Rim, and thus supplied goods and services across the galaxy. And this wasn't just an issue for the Republic, but the Empire obviously used slavery, and the New Republic and the later Galactic Alliance still couldn't fully solve the issue. When it came to the GA, they looked at formally outlawing slavery and enforcing that, but because slavery is just so important in the commerce of the Outer Rim, it was not a very politically feasible thing to do. So, a very interesting start to Darth Bane's life, one which certainly pushed him towards his dark side and helped influence his creation of the Rule of Two. That's all I have for now though, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, be safe and may the Force be with you.